In the third part of this series, I am still drawing from the long list of places that viewers have brought to my attention in comments and/or sent me pictures and information. My starting point again will be places people have suggested on the subject of airports and racing tracks in cities with the same characteristics and relationship to each other that I have already seen in the first two parts of this series, in Shepherd's Bush district of West London, the Sulphur Springs neighborhood in Tampa, Florida, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My name is Michelle Gibson. Several commenters pointed me in the direction of Toronto, and there are a number of places I'm going to take a look at here. First, the Woodbine Racetrack is a short distance northeast of the Toronto Pearson International Airport, in a straight line distance of 3 miles or 4.5 kilometers. The Woodbine Racetrack has been a thoroughbred horse racing venue, and there is a casino at this location as well. The Downsview Airport, further east of the Toronto Pearson International Airport, has a number of tracks close by. And the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport on Toronto Island has a track located northeast of it in a line that crosses through the real estate containing the CN Tower, Rogers Centre, and Roundhouse Park, and downtown Toronto. The CN, or Canadian National Tower, is 1,815 feet, or 553 meters high, a communications and observation tower located on what is known as railway lands, a large railway switching yard on the Toronto waterfront, and said to have been completed in 1976. Roundhouse Park, next to the CN Tower, was the location of the John Street Roundhouse, said to have been built in 1929 to maintain Canadian Pacific Railway trains during the golden age of railways, where maintenance teams worked on as many as 32 trains at a time. The Roundhouse is the last such building in Toronto, and survived the demolition of other railway facilities nearby that took place to make room for the new stadium, the Rogers Centre, which opened in June of 1989. The Rogers Centre is the home of Major League Baseball's Toronto Blue Jays, as well as a large event venue. Fort York is located just a short distance west of this busy spot on Toronto's waterfront, and a short distance north of the Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport. What we see at Fort York was said to have been built between 1813 and 1815 to house soldiers of the British Army and Canadian militia and to defend the entrance of Toronto Harbour, and made of stone-lined earthwork walls and 8 buildings within the walls. The Fort York Armory is interesting and also houses the Queen's York Rangers Museum. It is physically cut off from the old fort by the expressway, but you can get to the old fort from here, between the pair of old stone masonry arches at this entrance. We are told the armory was built with private funds in 1933 and has the largest lattice wood arched roof in Canada. There is some interesting window action going on here at the armory. At the east end of the building, there is uneven ground and windows at ground level. Most of the front of the armory and the west side of the building appears the same. But the east side of the building appears to show a whole floor underneath. We could call that a basement, right? Well, yeah, but if it was planned this way, it was sure sloppily done, like what is seen here in the front corner with regard to the ground level windows, especially for the building with the stunning perfection shown in the largest lattice wood arched roof in Canada. And literally right around the corner from the Fort York Armory is a triumphal arch and monumental gateway known as the Prince's Gate at Exhibition Place. The Prince's Gate was said to have been constructed out of cement and stone between April and August of 1927, and which serves as the eastern gateway of the Canadian National Exhibition, an annual agricultural and provincial fair. Now I'm going to head in the direction of a Toronto neighborhood known as the Beach or the Beaches. It is considered part of the old city of Toronto. There is a long series of what are called groins, which are jetties on the shoreline around both sides of the R.C. Harris water treatment plant that create and maintain beach and reduce erosion. The groins on either side of the R.C. Harris water treatment plant remind me in appearance of the ones in front of Fort Clinch, a star fort on Amelia Island on North Florida's Atlantic coast near the state border with Georgia. There were several amusement parks here historically, and the only pictorially documented one being the Scarborough Beach Park, in operation from 1907 until 1925, when apparently the owner of the park, the Toronto Railway Company, locked the gates to their property. Eventually, the Scarborough Beach Park property was sold to a company which removed the rides and the buildings and replaced the land with housing. The Victoria Park Amusement Park, said to have been in operation from 1878 to 1906, would have been right around where the X is at the intersection of Queen Street and Victoria Park Avenue. A special thanks to Lisa H. from Toronto for sending me not only this map to share with me where the location of the Victoria Park would have been, but she also went exploring and sent me quite a few pictures of the R.C. Harris water treatment plant complex to follow. Based on the photos she sent and past research on star forts, I'm going to postulate that the original purpose of the complex was a star fort. Here's why I think that. First, star forts had many different shapes. Most have pointed bastions, but some have round bastions, or a different shape altogether. And where I find one, there is at least one more in the vicinity to be found. Here's the example of Puebla, Mexico in Fort Guadalupe with pointed bastions and Fort Loreto with round bastions. Here's the geographic relationship of the locations of Fort York and the R.C. Harris water treatment plant. This is a photo of one of the round bastions at the R.C. Harris water treatment plant, and cut and shaped stone blocks with straight edges in the foreground. We are not given any other explanation in our historical narrative, so we typically don't ask questions about how they got this way. Like the buildings of Fort York, the R.C. Harris water treatment plant is built on top of earthworks. And the brick masonry here is massive, sophisticated, and intricate. It's even a popular spot in Toronto for engagement picture photo shoots. It's definitely quite impressive on the inside as well. This megalithic stone wall runs parallel to Queen Street at the front boundary of the complex, with the Neville Street Loop for the Queen Street streetcar line, the eastern terminus of Toronto's longest streetcar route, just off the northwest corner of the R.C. Harris complex. Here's what we are told about the R.C. Harris water treatment plant. Its construction started in 1932, and the building became operational on November 1st of 1941, which would have been during World War II and a little over a month before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. It was named after the longtime commissioner of Toronto's Public Works, R.C. Harris, overseer of the construction project, we are told. The last place I want to look at in Toronto before I move on was the suggestion someone made to look at Casa Loma, described as a Gothic Revival-style mansion constructed between 1911 and 1914 as a residence for financier Sir Henry Pellet, and called the biggest private residence ever constructed in Canada. It is a popular filming location for movies and television, as well as a wedding venue. Another commenter directed my attention to the former horse racing track next to Los Angeles International Airport, where there used to be thoroughbred racing. It was located at Hollywood Park, but the racetrack was destroyed and replaced with a new SoFi Stadium for the LA Rams and LA Chargers that first opened in September of 2020. It is 3 miles or 4.5 kilometers from the Los Angeles International Airport and just southeast of the Forum, a multi-purpose indoor arena that has been the home of the Major League Baseball and hockey teams of Los Angeles. Said to have been built in 1966, the Forum has no major support pillars on the inside. Another person suggested I take a look at Baltimore. Starting with the airport, I found school tracks at a similar angular relationship to Baltimore-Washington International Airport that I have found in other cities. Also, like what I have found in other major cities, the Baltimore professional sports complexes are relatively close to the airport in South Baltimore. Camden Yards was previously a yard for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and was converted into today's Oriole Park for the Baltimore Major League Baseball team, first opening in April of 1992. And the M&T Bank Stadium, the home of the National Football League's Baltimore Ravens, located next to Oriole Park at Camden Yards, and first opened in September of 1998. There are still rail yards fairly close to this location today. The next three places are located in downtown Baltimore, suggested by the viewer, that are located close to Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Baltimore's famous landmark, the Bromo-Seltzer Tower, was said to have been designed by local architect Joseph Evans Sperry and erected between 1907 and 1911. For Bromo-Seltzer inventor Isaac Edward Emerson. The Bromo-Seltzer Tower is also popular for photo shoots. Interestingly, Baltimore had a hippodrome theater near the Bromo-Seltzer Tower, which was said to have been built in 1914, and was the foremost vaudeville house in Baltimore as well as a movie theater. It was renovated in 2004 and is now part of the France Merrick Performing Arts Center. The Basilica of the Assumption is a number of blocks northeast of the Hippodrome and the Bromo-Seltzer Tower in downtown Baltimore, and said to be the first Roman Catholic cathedral built in the United States between 1806 and 1821. The architect of the Baltimore Basilica was said to be Benjamin Henry Latrobe, the father of American architecture, and best known for having been given the credit for designing the United States Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Another commenter mentioned the Sydney International Airport and the Royal Randwick Racecourse. The Royal Randwick Racecourse is a horse racing track on Crown Land, a territorial area belonging to the British monarch, that is leased to the Australian Turf Club. The first race at Randwick was held in 1833, and in the present day is the host of racing championships with millions of dollars in prize money. Another viewer mentioned Minneapolis and the old Met Stadium, which is now the Mall of America southwest of the airport, and I also found two running tracks just northeast of the airport, another running track just west of the airport, as well as the historical location of Nicollet Park, the home of the minor league baseball team, the Minneapolis Millers, between 1896 and 1955. The old Met Stadium was said to have been constructed between 1955 and 1956, in use mostly by the minor league Millers when they moved from Nicollet Park, and the Major League Baseball Twins and Football Vikings until 1981, and the stadium was demolished by 1985. Then the Mall of America was built where the stadium used to be, and when it opened in 1992, it was the largest shopping mall in total area and total number of store vendors. It is currently the 7th largest shopping mall in the world. Here's a comparison of the relationship between international airports and racing tracks that I have looked at in this series. What are the odds of this similar relationship happening randomly in diverse places across the world over long periods of time? Like long before international city planners could have gotten together and compared notes about where they were going to site airports relative to racetracks in their respective communities. All of this came to my attention after I noticed a similar relationship in the first part of this series between the location of the former White City Stadium, now the BBC White City Complex, in the Shepherd's Bush district in West London and Heathrow International Airport in London, and the former Greyhound track in the Sulphur Springs neighborhood of Tampa that I researched last summer, and the Tampa International Airport. Then all of a sudden airports and racetracks and other infrastructure like rail yards and major sports stadiums are turning up in similar relationships in different cities all over the world. I'm not an electronics person. This is an intuitive process for me, driven by the understanding through my research that the original advanced Moorish civilization had infrastructure placed precisely all over the world as part of an electromagnetic grid system that provided free energy. When I investigated elliptical electric circuitry for this video, I came across elliptical pads in printed circuit boards, or PCBs. Pads are an electrical connection point for components, and most carry current for either signal transfer or heat. I also found the term elliptical polarization, which occurs when there is more than one source of a magnetic field at the same frequency, and the magnetic field traces out an ellipse in space. Then there are elliptical antennae for things like satellite dishes and ultra-wideband communications. Then, when I was reading an article about elliptical polarization, I encountered the diagram on the left showing the efficiency in decibels of the axial ratio of two antennae, and the shapes formed in the graph immediately brought this common shape of windows in cathedrals on the right. This brings me to a different subject, which is that of what I believe the true function of cathedrals was: resonating chambers and communal places for people to gather for synchronization and harmonization through healing solfeggio frequencies. Someone sent me this graphic of what looks like a relationship between cathedral doors and octaves, the intervals between one musical pitch and another with double its frequency. This shape of doors is found at cathedrals and churches all over the world, built in different centuries, with the Noumea Cathedral in New Caledonia said to have been built between 1887 and 1897, the St. Nicholas of Myra Russian Orthodox Church in Manhattan, New York, said to have been built in 1883, the Church of St. George in Norwich, England, said to have been built in the 1100s, and the Turku Cathedral in Turku, Finland, said to have been consecrated in 1300. Not only that, cathedral rose windows look like the cymatic patterns of musical notes. Solfeggio frequencies make up the ancient six-tone scale used in sacred music, like, for example, Gregorian chants and Tibetan singing bowls. Each solfeggio tone is a frequency that can be used to balance one's energy and keep one's body, mind, and spirit in harmony. The modern suppression of solfeggio frequencies is an issue for humanity. The current musical scale is not tuned into solfeggio frequencies, and the results of this are believed to negatively affect our thinking skills and emotional states. More on this subject as I go along. Someone suggested that I look at what was an historical trolley amusement park called the Salem Willows in Salem, Massachusetts. The area became a public park in 1858 and opened as an amusement park in 1880, becoming a popular summer destination for residents of Boston's North Shore. Today, the Salem Willows Park still has many recreational activity venues and a children's amusement park. This brings me to Salem, Massachusetts, the historical location of the Salem witch trials, and a great example of the points I made about the relationship between architecture, frequencies, and the subversion of frequencies. This is the Salem Witch Museum, with its castle-like appearance and beautiful cathedral windows. The museum was founded in 1972 with exhibits and tours exploring the famous 1692 Salem witch trials. There is also what is called the Witch Dungeon Museum in Salem, also with a nice cathedral window, where there is a play about the witch trials in a beautiful theater with a huge pipe organ in the back, and exhibits of jailed people, and people hanging from a tree. Look at the kinds of lower vibrational imagery being deliberately imprinted on our brains and consciousness, instead of providing uplifting and healing experiences. Someone else brought the Cathedral of Learning in Pittsburgh to my attention, the tallest educational building in the Western Hemisphere, said to have been constructed between 1926 and 1934 in the late Gothic Revival style, and the second tallest educational building in the world, after the main building of the Moscow State University in Russia, said to have been constructed between 1947 and 1953 in the Stalinist architectural style. Both of them reminded me of the new Louisiana State Capitol building in Baton Rouge, said to have been built between December 16th of 1930 and May 16th of 1932 in the Art Deco architectural style. And the George Washington Masonic National Memorial in Alexandria, Virginia, with construction said to have begun in 1922 and completed in 1932, in a neoclassical architectural design patterned after the ancient lighthouse of Alexandria in Egypt. Then someone brought the Duke Chapel at Duke University in Durham, North Carolina to my attention, said to have first opened in 1932. This beautiful structure really caught my attention because in addition to its architectural size and features, Duke Chapel has 4 organs, each constructed in a different style, and a 50-bell carillon. So at the very least, it is a fully equipped and functioning frequency generator used for concerts, and the carillon bells are rung every weekday at 5 p.m. Somebody else brought Circleville in Ohio to my attention. The city of Circleville received its name from its original layout of a circle when it was established in 1810. I found this depiction of Circleville circa 1820. Looking something like the Octagon and Great Circle earthworks in Newark, Ohio, which became part of the Mound Builders Country Club. Circleville was incorporated as a town in 1814 and became a city in 1853. In 1838, the Circleville Squaring Company was formed to convert the town into a squared grid because residents were not satisfied with the town's original layout. By 1856, no traces of the original earthworks remained, except for a section of slightly elevated ground at the corner of Pickaway and Franklin Streets. As the county seat of Pickaway County, this courthouse in Circleville was said to have been built in 1890. Joseph S. sent me a number of photographs from where he lives in Defiance, Ohio. This is St. Paul's United Methodist Church in Defiance. St. Paul's has an organ, but I can't find a picture online showing where it is located inside the church. I did find this photograph of the pipes of an organ right underneath the cathedral rose window at St. Michael's Catholic Church in Kalida, Ohio, looking like there is a direct relationship between the frequency of the shape of the window and the music of the organ. In biology, the definition of organ, from the Latin word meaning instrument or tool, is a collection of tissues that structurally form for a specialized functional unit to perform a particular function. Are we talking about the same kind of thing with the organ as a musical instrument and the window as a frequency being broadcast for its particular function in the collective system? The old courthouse in Defiance was said to have been built in 1873 and designed in the Italianate and Second Empire styles of architecture. The city of Defiance is located at the confluence of the Auglaize and Maumee rivers, and the point where the rivers merged was the location of Old Fort Defiance. Just like the old Fort Defiance at Cairo, Illinois, which was located at the confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, and the two-star forts at the forks of the Ohio, located where the Ohio, Allegheny, and Monongahela rivers meet in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Fort Defiance was said to have been built in the second week of August in 1794 by General Mad Anthony Wayne as part of the line of defenses in the campaign leading to the Northwest Indian Wars, and that Fort Winchester was built in the same area in 1812 by General William Henry Harrison, who later became the 9th President of the United States with the shortest term, as he died a month after he took office. All that remains of the forts at the park are the earthworks seen in these photos Joseph S. sent me, like the earthworks we saw at Fort York and the R.C. Harris treatment plant back in Toronto. The last place I'm going to take a look at from a commenter's suggestion is the old Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California. The story goes that Sarah Winchester, the wealthy widow of firearm magnate William Wirt Winchester, who died of tuberculosis in 1881, was told by a medium to leave New Haven, Connecticut, and travel west to a location where she would continuously build a home for herself and the ghosts of the victims who died as a result of Winchester rifles. She left for California and purchased an unfinished farmhouse in Santa Clara County, apparently believing her family and fortune was haunted by ghosts, and she could only appease them by building them a house. She did not hire an architect, but instead added on to the building in a haphazard fashion by hiring carpenters to do the work, and ended up with a 7-story mansion. The house contains numerous strange features, such as doors and stairs that don't go anywhere, windows overlooking other rooms, and odd-sized stairs. After the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the Winchester house was said to go from 7 stories to 4 stories because of damage caused by the quake. Sarah Winchester died in 1922, and her will made no mention of the mansion. Shortly thereafter, it was purchased by investors and leased to John and Mamie Brown. The Winchester Mystery House was opened to the public in February of 1923, with Mamie Brown becoming the first tour guide. In the nearly 100 years since the Winchester Mystery House was first opened to the public for tours, millions of people have visited it, and it has been listed in many places as a top destination around the world, especially in the haunted destination category. I still have a lot of places left to visit that commenters have suggested to me, so I will be continuing with this subject in the next part of this series.